The distant church bells echoed through Prospect, Colorado, as Olivia Thorne was dragged across the dusty main street by her stepfather's bruising grip in the unforgiving summer of 1876. Her crime carrying a child out of wedlock had branded her with a shame too great for the God-fearing town to bear, especially after the father of her child had fled upon learning of her condition. $200 for the girl, bellowed Jeremiah Collins, his weathered face twisted with disgust as he addressed the crowd gathering outside the general store. She's young, healthy, and can work. Take her shame away from our decent folk. Olivia kept her tear-streaked face downcast, one hand protectively curved around her slightly swollen belly. At 20 years old, she believed in love when Henry Wilcox, the banker's son, had whispered promises under moonlight. Those promises had vanished with him to San Francisco when she'd told him about the baby. "You're selling your own daughter?" someone called from the crowd. "Stepdaughter," Jeremiah spat. "And after her mother died of the shame, I'll not have her sin under my roof another day." From the back of the crowd, a tall figure pushed forward. Olivia glimpsed worn leather boots, dust-covered denim, and finally the sun-bronzed face of a man she'd seen only in passing. Kyle Thompson was a name whispered with both respect and wariness in Prospect. His cattle ranch 5 miles outside town had prospered where others failed, but he rarely came to town except for supplies. "This ain't proper," Kyle said, his voice quiet but carrying weight that silenced the murmurs around them. "Selling a person ain't legal, not since the war." Jeremiah's face reddened. "I'm not selling a slave. I'm finding her a place, since she can't stay with decent folk." Kyle's eyes, blue as a mountain lake, shifted to Olivia. She felt stripped bare under that gaze, but found no judgment there. $200, Kyle finally said, reaching into his pocket. "But not for buying a person. Consider it compensation for raising her, and now I'm offering her employment at my ranch." Jeremiah's greedy fingers snatched the money before Kyle finished speaking. "She's your problem now. Don't come crying when she brings shame to your house, too." Kyle stepped closer to Olivia, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "There's no shame in my house, Miss Thorne. Only people who work hard and live honest." With those words, something fragile flickered in Olivia's chest, not hope exactly, but perhaps its distant cousin. "I don't need charity," she whispered, still not meeting his eyes. "It's not charity. I need help running the house, since Mrs. Abernathy left to care for her sister in Denver." He extended a calloused hand. "You'll earn your keep, and you'll have a roof for you and your child. That's all I'm offering." The alternative was staring at her from the sneering faces of the townsfolk. Some would take her in as little more than a slave, others for purposes that made her skin crawl. Kyle Thompson was offering something no one else had: dignity. She placed her trembling hand in his. "I accept." The journey to Thompson Ranch passed in awkward silence. Kyle drove the wagon with sure hands, occasionally glancing at Olivia, who sat stiffly beside him, her few possessions bundled beside her. "Why did you do it?" she finally asked as the town disappeared behind them. Kyle kept his eyes on the trail ahead. "My mother was in a similar position once. No one helped her." "What happened to her?" A muscle twitched in his jaw. "She didn't survive the birth. Neither did my sister." Olivia's hand instinctively went to her belly again. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. I was raised by my father until he was killed in a dispute over water rights when I was 16. Kyle's voice carried no self-pity, only statement of fact. "I've been on my own since." The ranch came into view as they crested a hill, a sturdy 2-story house with a wide porch, a large barn, and several outbuildings. It wasn't grand, but it was well maintained, with smoke curling from the chimney despite the summer heat. "Rosa, my cook, lives in town with her husband. She comes 3 days a week to prepare meals and do some cleaning, but there's more work than she can manage," Kyle explained. "You'll have your own room. It was meant to be a nursery once, but it'll do." Olivia's throat tightened. "You were married?" Engaged. Elizabeth died of influenza 3 years ago, before we could marry. The pain in his voice was carefully contained but unmistakable. This man knew loss intimately. I'm not looking for a replacement, Kyle added quickly. This is strictly an arrangement of convenience. You need shelter, I need help. Nothing more. Of course, Olivia nodded, ignoring the unexpected pang of disappointment. The room Kyle showed her was small but pleasant, with a window overlooking the eastern pastures. A narrow bed with a quilt, a chest of drawers, and a rocking chair constituted the furnishings. It's not much, Kyle said, lingering in the doorway. It's more than I deserve, Olivia replied softly. His expression hardened. Don't say that. Whatever happened, you deserve to be treated with respect. And your child deserves a chance. After Kyle left her to settle in, Olivia sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself the luxury of silent tears. They weren't entirely tears of sorrow. For the first time in months, she felt something dangerously close to safety. The following weeks established a routine. Olivia rose early, preparing breakfast before Kyle headed out to the pastures. She cleaned, mended, and on the days Rosa didn't come, she cooked simple meals. Her growing belly made some tasks difficult, but she pushed through the discomfort, determined to earn her keep. Kyle rarely spoke beyond necessary communication, but Olivia often caught him watching her with an inscrutable expression. He never asked about the father of her child, never pried into her past, and for that, she was grateful. One evening in late August, as Olivia was hanging laundry, she noticed dark clouds gathering on the horizon. She hurried to finish before the storm hit, but a sharp pain in her abdomen doubled her over. She gasped, clutching the clothesline for support. Miss Thorne? Kyle's voice reached her, through the haze of pain. He must have returned early from checking the herd. I'm fine, she managed, straightening with effort. Just a twinge. Kyle's brow furrowed as he approached. You're pale as a ghost. Another pain seized her, more intense than the first. She couldn't hide her wince this time. That's not nothing, Kyle said firmly. Let's get you inside. He helped her to the house, his arms strong around her waist. Once inside, he eased her into a chair by the kitchen table. It's too early, Olivia whispered, fear edging her voice. The baby isn't due for another month. Kyle's calm demeanor didn't waver. I'll fetch Dr. Wilson from town. No. Panic rose in Olivia's throat. He's Jeremiah's friend. He'll tell everyone. Then I'll get Rosa. She's helped with births before. Rain began to lash against the windows as Kyle helped Olivia to her room. By the time he'd made her comfortable and rushed to fetch Rosa, the storm had intensified into a deluge. Olivia lay alone, counting the minutes between pains that grew steadily closer together. 2 hours later, Kyle returned alone, soaked to the skin and grim-faced. The creek's flooded. Can't get to town. Olivia bit back a sob of despair. The baby's coming, she admitted. Kyle's expression shifted from concern to determination. Then we'll manage. My father's herd included cows. I've delivered calves. Under different circumstances, Olivia might have laughed at the comparison. Instead, she nodded weakly. There's no choice. What followed was a night that would forever alter the course of 2 lives. Kyle worked with quiet efficiency, heating water, gathering clean linens, and staying by Olivia's side as her labor progressed. When her strength faltered, his steady voice encouraged her. When fear overwhelmed her, his hand remained firm in hers. You're the strongest person I've ever met, he told her as dawn approached and her ordeal intensified. You can do this. With a final, guttural cry, Olivia brought her son into the world just as the first rays of sunlight pierced the storm clouds. Kyle wrapped the squalling infant in a soft blanket and placed him in his mother's trembling arms. He's perfect, Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face. Kyle's own eyes were suspiciously bright as he gazed at the tiny red face. He is. In that moment, as three hearts beat in the quiet room, one exhausted, one newborn, and one unexpectedly moved, something shifted between them. Not love, not yet, but a connection forged in the crucible of shared struggle. Olivia named her son Daniel, after her late father. Kyle insisted she rest completely for a week, taking on her chores along with his own. He hired a young local boy to help with the cattle while he tended to the house and baby when Olivia needed sleep. "You don't have to do this," Olivia told him one evening as he walked the floor with a fussing Daniel. "I know," Kyle replied simply. The baby settled against his broad shoulder, tiny fingers curled around one of Kyle's. The sight stirred something in Olivia that she thought had died with her shattered dreams, a longing for family, for belonging. She quickly tamped it down. Kyle had been clear about the nature of their arrangement. She wouldn't mistake kindness for anything more. As autumn painted the surrounding hills in golds and reds, Olivia regained her strength. Daniel thrived, growing plumper by the day. She resumed her duties, determined to repay Kyle's generosity by making his home as comfortable as possible. One Sunday in early October, Kyle surprised her. "I thought we might go to church in Silverdale," he said over breakfast. Silverdale was a smaller town 20 miles west, where no one knew Olivia's history. She hesitated. "Are you sure? Daniel should be christened," he said matter-of-factly. "And you deserve to worship without judgment, if that's what you want." The trip to Silverdale became a weekly tradition. The congregation there welcomed them without question, assuming they were a young family. Neither corrected the misconception. It was easier this way, Olivia told herself, ignoring how right it felt to sit beside Kyle in the pew, their shoulders occasionally touching as Daniel slept in her arms. The first snow came early that year, blanketing the ranch in white silence. Kyle worked tirelessly to ensure the cattle had shelter and feed. Olivia kept the house warm, baking bread and stews that filled the kitchen with comforting aromas. One evening, as wind howled around the eaves, Kyle returned from checking the barn. His face was red with cold, his expression troubled. "What is it?" Olivia asked, handing him a cup of hot coffee. "Saw tracks heading toward the north pasture. Might be rustlers." He accepted the cup gratefully. "I'll need to ride out at first light to check. In this weather? It's dangerous. Can't afford to lose any cattle. The herd's barely big enough as it is." Olivia bit her lip. "At least take someone with you." Everyone snowed in at their own places. Kyle's eyes softened at her concern. "I'll be fine." But he wasn't fine. When Kyle hadn't returned by midday, Olivia's worry grew into full-blown fear. When darkness fell with still no sign of him, she bundled Daniel securely and made her way to the barn. The old mare Blossom was gentle enough for her to handle. "I'm being foolish," she told Daniel as she prepared the horse. "Your Uncle Kyle is probably just waiting out the weather." Uncle Kyle. The term had slipped out without thought, and Olivia froze. When had she begun thinking of him in familial terms? When had his safety become entwined with her own sense of security? She couldn't answer those questions now. With Daniel secured against her chest and wrapped in layers of blankets, she guided Blossom into the snowy night. The mare seemed to know where to go, following what must have been Kyle's earlier tracks, now nearly obscured by fresh snowfall. An hour later, Olivia spotted Kyle's horse first, standing patiently beside a fallen tree. Then she saw him, slumped against the same tree, one leg stretched out at an awkward angle. "Kyle," she cried, dismounting awkwardly with Daniel still strapped to her. His eyes opened slowly, clouded with pain but clearing at the sight of her. "Olivia? What in God's name are you doing out here? With the baby?" "Looking for you." She knelt beside him, checking for injuries. "What happened?" "Horse spooked at a mountain lion. Through me. Think my leg's broken." His gaze fixed on Daniel. You shouldn't have brought him out in this cold. We couldn't just leave you to freeze, Olivia retorted, her relief making her bold. Can you ride if I help you? It took all their combined strength to get Kyle onto Blossom's back. Olivia walked beside, leading the horse carefully through the deepening snow, Daniel mercifully sleeping through the ordeal. When they finally reached the ranch, both adults were exhausted and half-frozen. Olivia helped Kyle into the house and onto the sofa before building up the fire. She put Daniel in his cradle, then turned her attention to Kyle's injury. His lower leg was swollen and discolored, but not visibly deformed. Might be just a bad sprain, she said hopefully, cutting away his boot and trouser leg. Kyle gritted his teeth as she examined him. Doesn't matter what it is. The cattle will have to wait until you're healed, Olivia interrupted firmly. I can handle the basic feeding with Blossom's help. You don't know the first thing about ranch work. Then teach me. Her eyes met his, unwavering. You helped me when I needed it most. Let me do the same. Something shifted in Kyle's expression, a surrender, perhaps, or a recognition. You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Olivia smiled slightly as she wrapped his ankle. I'll take that as a compliment. The next weeks created a new dynamic between them. With Kyle confined to the house, he directed Olivia in the essentials of ranch maintenance. She rose before dawn, trudging through snow to feed the cattle, check fences, and ensure the water wasn't frozen. She returned exhausted but satisfied, often finding Kyle with Daniel on his good leg, telling the baby stories about cowboys and wild horses. You're good with him, she observed one evening as Kyle gently rocked Daniel to sleep. Kyle's eyes remained on the baby. He makes it easy. Never known a more agreeable child. He likes you. Olivia hesitated before adding softly, we both do. Kyle's gaze lifted to hers, something unreadable flickering in its depths. Olivia, the moment was broken by Daniel's fussing. Olivia quickly took him for his feeding, her heart racing at her own boldness. Had she misread the situation entirely? As winter deepened, so did their connection. Long evenings by the fire were filled with conversation that gradually moved from practicalities to personal histories. Kyle spoke of his dreams for the ranch, of the family he'd hoped to have with Elizabeth. Olivia shared stories of her childhood before her father's death, of her mother's gentle spirit broken by Jeremiah's cruelty. She didn't speak of Henry Wilcox until one night when Daniel was 3 months old. He said he loved me, she whispered into the firelit room. I believed him, because I wanted to. When I told him about the baby, he was gone the next day. Left a note saying his father had arranged a position for him in San Francisco. Her laugh held no humor. At least he left a note. Kyle's jaw tightened. If I ever meet this man, you won't, Olivia interjected. And it doesn't matter anymore. Daniel and I are better off without someone who didn't want us. She looked up at Kyle. I've learned what real strength looks like since then. The air between them grew charged with unspoken emotion. Kyle moved slightly closer on the sofa they shared. Olivia, he began, his voice rough with feeling. I never expected. A pounding at the door startled them both. Kyle struggled to his feet, reaching for the rifle he kept near the door. Olivia quickly went to Daniel's cradle, standing protectively beside her sleeping son. Kyle opened the door to reveal a snow-covered figure, a man Olivia recognized with a shock of horror. Henry Wilcox stood on their porch, his city clothes inadequate for the winter cold. I'm looking for Olivia Thorne, he announced, peering past Kyle. His eyes widened when he spotted her. Olivia. Thank God I found you. Kyle blocked the doorway. Who are you? Henry Wilcox. The man replied with the entitlement of someone unused to being questioned. I've come for Olivia and my child. Olivia stepped forward, one hand still on Daniel's cradle. Why now, Henry? It's been almost a year. Henry had the grace to look uncomfortable. My father died last month. I'm free of his influence now. I've come to do the right thing. He produced a small box from his pocket. I want to marry you, Olivia. Give our child a proper name. Kyle's expression had turned to stone. He looked at Olivia, his eyes asking a question he wouldn't voice aloud. Olivia felt strangely calm as she regarded the man she had once thought she loved. Your timing is convenient, Henry. Now that your father can't disapprove, you're willing to acknowledge us. I made a mistake, Henry insisted. I'm here to fix it. Kyle remained silent, his knuckles white where he gripped his crutch. Daniel and I have a home, Olivia said quietly. We're not looking for charity. Henry's expression hardened. He's my son. I have rights. Rights. Kyle's voice was dangerously soft. What rights do you claim after abandoning them both? This doesn't concern you, Henry snapped. Olivia, be reasonable. I'm offering you respectability, a good name. Olivia's chin lifted. I don't need your name. I've learned there's no shame in being who I am. Her eyes briefly met Kyle's. Someone wise taught me that. Henry's face flushed with anger. You can't keep my son from me. I'm not keeping him from you, Olivia replied evenly. You're welcome to know him, to be part of his life if you prove yourself worthy. But I won't marry you, Henry. Not now, not ever. The silence that followed was broken only by the crackling fire and the soft sounds of Daniel stirring in his sleep. You'll regret this, Henry finally said, his handsome features twisted with wounded pride. When people continue to whisper about your shame, there's no shame in this house, Kyle interrupted, his voice firm but controlled. Only honesty and respect. If you want to know your son, you'll show the same to his mother. Henry looked between them, understanding dawning in his eyes. I see how it is, he said coldly. Found yourself a protector, did you, Olivia? I found myself, she corrected him. And yes, I found someone who didn't run when things got difficult. Someone who sees value in me beyond what I can offer him. She moved to stand beside Kyle. You're welcome to stay the night. The storm's getting worse. In the morning, you can meet your son properly if you wish. Henry hesitated, then nodded stiffly. I'll take a room in town. I'll return tomorrow. After he left, Olivia and Kyle stood in silence for several moments. Finally, Kyle spoke. Would you have preferred I hadn't interfered? Olivia turned to face him fully. You didn't interfere. You supported me. She took a deep breath. Before he arrived, you were about to say something. Kyle's eyes, usually so guarded, were now transparent with emotion. I was going to say that I never expected to feel this way again after Elizabeth died. That you and Daniel have brought something back to life in me that I thought was buried with her. Olivia's heart hammered in her chest. And what way is that? Love, Kyle said simply. I love you, Olivia. I love Daniel, as if he were my own. But I won't stand in the way if you believe Daniel needs his real father. You are more his father than Henry will ever be, Olivia whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. You were there when he took his first breath. You walk the floor with him at night. You love him without obligation. Her hand reached up to touch Kyle's face. And I love you for that and for 1,000 other reasons. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, as if both feared breaking the delicate understanding they'd reached. When they parted, Kyle's smile held all the warmth of the sun after the longest winter. Henry did return the next morning. His meeting with Daniel was awkward but not unkind. He promised to provide financial support and to visit occasionally, though the look in his eyes suggested he found the situation distasteful. Olivia accepted his offer of support for Daniel's sake, but made it clear that her future lay with Kyle. Spring came early that year, melting away the snow and revealing tender green shoots beneath. On the first truly warm day, Kyle took Olivia to a hillside overlooking the ranch. Daniel, now 6 months old and sitting up on his own, played happily on a blanket between them. I've been thinking, Kyle said, watching a hawk circle lazily overhead. This land needs a proper family to thrive. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. Does it now? It does. Kyle turned to face her, taking her hands in his. Olivia Thorne, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Of making this house a true home for us and for Daniel? Tears blurred Olivia's vision as she nodded. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. They were married 2 weeks later in the Silverdale church, with Daniel gurgling happily in Rose's arms. The congregation that had accepted them as a family now celebrated, making it official. No one from Prospect was invited, though rumors had already spread about Olivia's new situation. 1 year to the day after Olivia had been dragged through Prospect's main street in disgrace, she returned as Mrs. Kyle Thompson, her head held high. Daniel, now walking with uncertain steps, held tightly to his mother's hand while Kyle carried him with the other. They had business at the bank opening an account for Daniel that would hold Henry's support payments and grow until the boy was of age. As they passed the general store, Jeremiah Collins emerged, stopping short at the sight of his former stepdaughter. His eyes darted from Olivia's fine new dress to Kyle's protective stance beside her, finally settling on Daniel's happy face. Afternoon, Kyle said evenly, neither friendly nor hostile. Jeremiah's weathered face worked through several emotions before settling on a grudging nod. Thompson, heard you took on more than you bargained for. Best decision I ever made, Kyle replied, his hand finding Olivia's. They continued to the bank, leaving Jeremiah and the whispers of the town behind them. What once would have wounded Olivia now barely registered. Her shame had been transformed into strength, her abandonment into belonging. That night, as they lay in the bed they now shared, Kyle traced the line of Olivia's cheek with gentle fingers. Any regrets? He asked softly. Olivia thought of the difficult path that had brought her here, the pain, the fear, the judgment. Then she thought of Daniel sleeping peacefully in the next room, of the ranch flourishing under their joint care, of the love that had grown between her and this good man. Not one, she answered truthfully. Every step led me home. Kyle pulled her closer, his heartbeat steady against her ear. No shame, he whispered into her hair. Only love. Outside their window, the western sky blazed with stars, witnessing a promise kept and a future unfolding beneath the vast Colorado heavens, a future built not on shame and judgment, but on understanding, forgiveness, and the quiet courage of hearts finding their way to each other against all odds.